Hello and welcome everyone. I am Dr. Asawari Savant, a senior sub-editor at Elets Technomedia, India's leading and largest B2B multimedia platform. And on behalf of Elets Technomedia and the Banking and Finance Post magazine, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to this special episode of Elets Innovation Talks. For over 2 decades, Elets Technomedia has been a leader in organizing groundbreaking summits across governance, healthcare, education, and banking and finance. Our mission has always been to push boundaries, foster dialogue, and drive progress. This episode is brought to you by the Banking and Finance Post, which is Asia's premier B2B magazine dedicated to the BFSI sector, which has been at the forefront of shaping industry narratives for over a decade. And now we have the privilege of hosting an extraordinary entrepreneur who has played a pivotal role in reshaping India's BFSI landscape. An absolute honor to welcome Anuj Khurana, co-founder and chief executive officer, Anaptyss. We are thrilled to have you with us, Mr. Anuj. Thank you so much for joining.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Great. For our audience, Mr. Anuj Khurana is the CEO and co-founder of Anaptyss, a digitally enabled managed service firm based in Alpharetta, GA, serving financial institutions worldwide. With over 25 years of strategic leadership in financial services, he has collaborated with C-suite executives across global banks, fintechs, wealth management firms, and insurance companies to drive transformation in financial compliance, fraud prevention, risk management, and customer experience. Under his leadership, Anaptyss has expanded rapidly across the USA, India, and Canada, growing to a team of 700 plus professionals with plans to double by 2027. The company has gained industry recognition for its digitally driven managed services, leveraging domain expertise, product engineering, and the proprietary DKO framework. Previously, Anuj has held senior roles at WNS, EXL, and NTT Data, leading large scale business transformation initiatives. He is an alumnus of Delhi University and the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India and has been associated with the Harvard Management Series. Outside of work, he enjoys traveling, family time, and engaging with his teams to foster innovation. Thank you once again for being part of our show today. It is an absolute honor. Let us start with our discussion, which is around the themes of adoption of Gen AI in banking and financial services. So, we would first like to, have your thoughts and inputs on how do you see Gen AI reshaping the BFSI sector and the industry, and what are the key areas where its adoption is delivering the most value today, according to you? Over to you.
This is actually, thanks. This is a very interesting question with respect to what is the impact of Gen AI within the financial services industry. I will, give an answer to this is that, nobody knows at this point of time. It's evolving. It is evolving right now, given the course of, what we are doing with a lot of actually, clients, which includes regional, super regional banks, global banks, mortgage lenders per se. I think everybody is trying to claim, oh, this is an AI solution or a Gen AI solution. But the reality on the ground is that it is evolving. Because, in terms of, because the problem statements are so complex and nobody, in fact, has a very deep understanding how, an AI or a Gen AI solution actually will fit in. And the reason I'm saying it's evolving because the adoption, even all these banks, regional, super regional banks, or across the financial service industry, there are two critical, elements they're always concerned about. One is the element of risk. Okay. And by nature, all the financial institutions are conservative in nature. They are not the front runners, they are more of the followers in terms of adopting any new change, any new technology in the market. So it is evolving. Okay, there is a lot of education and knowledge floating around, and everybody is just watching the other institution. Oh, what they will do, let us actually follow us. But at the same time, to answer the second part of your question, yes, there is a lot of potential opportunity in terms of where AI or Gen AI actually can add a lot of value. But Gen AI is not, it do not work in just isolation from a technology perspective. It has to actually have a bundle of domain, which is actually the intellectual capital, bundled with the technology muscle in terms, because that's the way we'll be able to give more of a digitally enabled, intelligent digital solutions, to the business and the market. And that's what ultimately is happening. So it's more of a combination of domain, the intellectual capital of the business, what marrying it with, all these, newest solutions of AI and Gen AI. I think when we will talk maybe 5 years down the line, I can then confidently say, oh, this is actually the use case. Right now, even for us also within our ecosystem, as you rightly said, our philosophy of digital knowledge operations, digital is the key. Digital is the key. Digital is a differentiator, but is digital an answer to every problem statement? No. Can digital, all these AI, Gen AI solutions can replace the human capital? No. Definitely, it will make the businesses efficient, but it will never take away or it will never eliminate the need of the human capital required, because that's the domain muscle on which the entire banking and financial services industry relies upon. So that's the way I would answer your question.
Definitely. So, very rightly said. AI is not here to replace humans as earlier how people thought when AI first came. With every new technology that comes in, people are first hesitant and then they adopt it, and they adopt it to a very good level. Then they exploit it. So, moving on to our next question, we would like to know what are some of the biggest challenges that financial institutions have faced or to face when implementing Gen AI, and how does Anaptyss help them navigate these complexities? The different kind of challenges, if you can elaborate on different kind of benefits the organization is offering.
See, the other thing, the biggest challenge of AI or Gen AI, first of all, nobody knows what's the true definition of an AI or Gen AI. Everybody's trying to claim, oh, my model. What is, AI or Gen AI? It's more about writing actually specific models, behind the scenes. And models are just little code doing what you do. And, the evolution started from RPA to machine learning to AI, and then AI to Gen AI. So these are all just actually models. And different companies, different institutions are claiming, those models to be an AI or a Gen AI solution. The difference between AI or Gen AI is more about, it's all based on the data, how you actually convert the entire unstructured data into a structured data and build actually a model over it. The issues, the major complexity and the major issue is that there is no guardrails around it, and nobody and everybody's trying to figure it out. Okay, what the policies and procedures have to be put in place. When I say policies and procedures, because they will define those guardrails, they will define those controls, and that's what, within our ecosystem we are working very closely with our clients first to actually build these solutions, digitally enabled solution, which actually goes back to our, managed services model also, because those times of, handle my mess for less is from a people perspective in a global market, those have gone away. Those digitally enabled solution in terms of that's what we are actually building, where we actually have the domain muscles bundling with actually our digital and AI power to actually build those solutions. But to your point, what are the challenges? The guardrails. Now, all the banks and all the financial institutions are, oh, how to actually control it? Because the financial services industry is the most regulated industry across the globe. And when actually, and then that's where ultimately all these AI solutions, it's really important to establish, from a risk perspective, what are the controls? All the AI models, or the Gen AI models that ultimately are being written behind the scenes to build those solutions. What are the controls around it? How are they being monitored? How are they being trained? And that's what, as a part of our ecosystem, we are working very, very closely with our clients, how to actually define those policies and procedures in terms of the guardrails that has to be defined across all those models, so that, okay, if I have this kind of a risk, okay, what's the policy around it? What's the control? How do I mitigate that risk? And that's what effectively we are doing with our, in fact, clients very extensively, whether you talk about the model risk management, where you actually build a model, then you document a model, and then you validate the model. And when I say validation, that is more about how you actually are doing the validation, the testing of that control, which differs from first line to a second line of defense. So that's what ultimately, we are doing, with our clients. One is building of the models and then actually helping them how to validate, how to test those models, which actually run all the AI or the Gen AI solutions.
So more of like a 360 approach and staying with them even after they've implemented it, started using it, and post that as well, which is really amazing. And we don't see much organizations doing that. It's more like, yes, you buy a product and okay, or go on with it, that kind of model. This is amazing. Moving on to our next question, which is compliance and regulatory scrutiny. As these are major concerns for AI adoption in BFSI, how can banks leverage Gen AI while also ensuring compliance with evolving regulations? As you must be aware, India is working around DPDP Act, which has been recently released. So we would love to know your thoughts on all these kind of areas.
In fact, and see, compliance and regulatory governance is must, and especially, in fact, within the United States, in fact, either, the banks are being regulated by the state regulators or they're actually regulated by OCC. And that's, it's an evolution, it's a process, I will say, as the adoption or the education or learning of AI or Gen AI is happening the same way from a compliance, from a regulatory perspective as well. All the institutions, are working to actually put the guardrails around it. And see, and a compliance, and regulatory, governance, it's all around, data security, okay, information security, logical security per se. And that's what, all those controls, it's more of a that this entire ecosystem is around more around third party risk management area as well. Again, as we as providers are providing those services, those solutions to our clients. So how the policies and the compliance is actually being defined around it. I think that that's what ultimately it is happening. And we are working very extensively because because all these AI solutions, they are based on data. So that data security is very critical, whether it is being housed on premise or on cloud, and how that environment, is being fully controlled and monitored. And I think that that's what it's a process. It's evolving, and that's where I think each and every institution is responding very differently in terms of their adoption or their maturity as well. Okay. Especially in the United States, a 30 or a $50 billion bank, their adoption, their maturity will be much, much less versus actually a bigger bank or a global bank per se. So I think that's the way I would answer your question.
So cutting it to a little more on the personal side, because on this series we also would like to know the story behind building this kind of organization, being part of this kind of organization, and the dreams for future. So I mean, what came across your mind while you were working around building Anaptyss, and what were the pinpoints or gaps in the sector that you could identify that you wanted to come up with this kind of solution?
My whole thought process and goal to build Anaptyss was for two reasons. Bring real value to our customers, our clients, and at the same time pass on that value to my employees, to my people on the ground. And that's what I believe that was a missing element. And what I observed in my career of 2 decades, before actually founding Anaptyss, because I think it was more around the fact, you just actually squeeze what actually the client is thinking, but nobody was trying to understand what's the real problem statement of the client, what they're trying to solve. I think, and that's what, for me, it was very critical. And this conversation is very close to my heart because when I say real value, I don't care about the fact, okay, in a lift and shift, okay, my client is actually giving me 10, 20, 50. But if over the course of, the next 6 to 12 months or 24 months, I can actually add real value, add in the process, revamp the entire process and bring in efficiencies to the table. Even if I actually lose a pie of my business, I don't care about that because my goal was to add real value. And once you actually add real value, you act actually, you are able to actually create a very different niche for yourself with a client. And at the same time, how we deal with people, how I pass on that value. Because see, who will deliver that value for my client? It's the people on the ground. It's the people on the ground who will actually bring those ideas to the table. We can agree to disagree, that's absolutely fine. But those people will bring those ideas to the table and actually make Anaptyss look different. And knock on wood, over the course of last 3 years or so, since we founded Anaptyss, that culture is building. That thought process is building because if I add value, to my client, I add value to my employees as well, and I pass on that actually, value, that career progression to my employees. So it's actually, it's a two-way street. It's not a one-way street, and that's what was my vision per se. And I think over the course of last 3 years, and this is more of a, I always say, you crawl, walk, and run. And I think we actually have reached the phase two of our journey where we have started to walk and walk fast because of the fact that our goal is to continue to add value to our clients and drive the right culture for the people who will actually help Anaptyss, my leadership, to drive that value to the clients.
Definitely.
So that's the way I would act.
Definitely, and that is something very beautiful that you've mentioned as well. That most of the organizations do miss out on while they're working towards their targets. They're working towards they tend to miss out on customer satisfaction, the holistic form of satisfaction, which is also very important in just any industry, not just banking, BFSI industry. Yes, all the more, even more in BFSI industry, it's important. So moving back to a little more, different kind of topic, which is, with many financial institutions that are still early or at early stages in AI adoption, just like the entire world, what steps should banks take to build a scalable and future-ready AI strategy? I mean, AI for the future is definitely not going to be how it is right now. So we would love to know your thoughts around this and your tips that you would want to voice out.
First of all, again, as I said, it is evolving. The education of AI is very important. AI or Gen AI. That education is very important because one solution doesn't fit all. If you go back 5 or 10 years ago, RPA was a big buzz. RPA is robotic process automation. Now nobody talks about it. Okay, because that's completely outdated. Robotics got replaced by machine learning. Machine learning got replaced by AI. AI is now actually getting replaced by Gen AI. These are all the big words, buzzwords. Okay, big are the buzzwords. First of all, it is very important in terms of the education of the solution. That's number one. Second, identify the problem statements. Where specifically AI or Gen AI solution actually could apply. Because see, what actually we see as success right now, and whatever we're hearing from the industry or some of the banks are claiming, especially on the customer service side of the world, AI or Gen AI solutions are more successful rather than actually the back office operations. Because back office operation, it is more about you're dealing with a lot of unstructured data, whether you talk about commercial banking operations, mortgage banking operations, or insurance, claim adjudication or so. And that's where I think it is really important to understand, how, and which specific problem statements you're looking to solve. Third, be realistic. You know, it's not a click of a button that actually you will, once you implement an AI solution, you will actually get 100% accuracy or 100% efficiency. It's a process. It's because though all these solutions are actually behind the scenes, they are actually built on a model. And you have to educate those models. You have to train those models. You have to monitor those models. And that's over the course of 18 to 24 months, you will see some better efficiency levels, coming, from those models, because it's all about input versus output. So that's what I would actually say. And last, putting the guardrails and the controls around it just to make sure all these models are monitored properly and there's testing in place to ensure strict compliance. Because as I said in my first response, the financial services industry is very regulated. The moment actually you have the regulators actually sitting, they will say, okay, this model is working well for you, and this is actually really good. They will say and ask you, okay, how are you validating the result of this model? Okay, in a financial crime space, if an AI solution is eliminating some of the false positives, they will say, okay, you tell me, okay, how are you ensuring the decisioning being done by the AI solution is accurate, 100% accurate? how are you putting a control around it? So that is what is really critical.
Definitely. Thank you so much for giving us those kind of perspectives, which definitely have been shared on this platform, not before. So, moving on to our next question, which is how does digital knowledge operations framework of the Anaptyss align with the evolving needs of financial institutions, especially in the era of Gen AI, predictive analysis, etc.? If you can elaborate on that a little bit for our audience who is also from the B2B industry, very curious to know on that.
It's very much because if you see digital knowledge operations, digital basically means, all these AI, Gen AI, solutions that we're putting in place. Knowledge is domain. Nothing goes if you don't know the domain. I cannot implement a solution if I don't know the domain. And the domains are so vast. And when I say domain, commercial lending is very different from, retail. Retail is very different from mortgage. Mortgage is very different from wealth and investment management. If I don't know the domain, I cannot actually understand the problem statement really well. Whether it is a digital or doing something manually, I need to have domain. Then operations, it is delivery. Okay. The first thing actually we always, do as we take over any business from our clients, because so digital knowledge operations is philosophy, which is a managed services philosophy for us. The approach that ultimately leads to the implementation of our digital knowledge philosophy, we say learn, you know, evolve and transform. Okay, and that's where, learning the process, mapping out the entire end-to-end business, figuring out, okay, where and how you actually make the process efficient, and that's where the element of delivery will come into picture, and that will come hand in hand with domain, and then you actually propose interventions, digital interventions to make the business better. And that's where, that digital is actually integrating with all the solutions. See, the digital solutions could be anything. It could be a VB based solution, VBA based solution, or it could be an RPA based solution, or it could be AI or a Gen AI solution. And that's where within Anaptyss, we actually have a concept called digital entrepreneurs as a part of every business who work hand in hand with my domain experts, with my process mapping experts to carve out those solutions which are realistic in nature. Because see, normally in the what as I going back to my point, I want to add real value to the clients. Okay, that real value can only come to play when I say I'm actually proposing real solutions. I'm not trying to say to the client, oh my god, I can digitize the entire system, your core banking system. And is that a real solution? No, that's a fake solution. Okay, that is something more of a sales pitch. And that's where I think at our end, we are trying to make sure how those real digital solutions come into play and we can actually, add value to our clients.
Thank you so much. We come down to the last two questions of this very insightful discussion. One being your thoughts and advice that you would want to voice out through this platform to our audience, which is bifurcated into two and three sets. One being from the government side, government of India, etc., the organizations, the top leaders from the government organizations in the BFSI sector. Second being entrepreneurs, BFSI leaders themselves who are the players in this industry in the private sector, and third being budding entrepreneurs or budding BFSI leaders who are looking up to this, talk to gain advices and knowledge. So, for all these three, what would be some things that you would want to voice out around that topic that we're discussing on the Gen AI adoption?
Okay, I think that's an interesting question. I think from a government perspective, controls, the guardrails, the governance, mechanism and controls are very, very critical because sometimes, these digital solutions can go completely haywire. So that control mechanism, that governance, those policies and procedures have to be in place, and that has to be regulated by the government, be it India or United States, just to make sure those checks and balances in place. For the entrepreneurs, again, for me, again, the existing entrepreneurs or the second phase, part of your question was more around the upcoming or the budding, entrepreneurs. It's all in the mind. Okay. It's more about your ability to actually change. And it's when actually I meet, individuals and say, and the way I'm trying to actually engage entrepreneurs or the people that are becoming a part of the team, it is something you have to completely come up with an open mind and don't try to actually, in fact, change everything overnight. It's a journey. Being an entrepreneur is a journey where you will learn a lot and you have to unlearn a lot as well. The same thing actually happened with me also, and it continues to happen even now as well. It's been 3 years for me into this journey. So that learning and unlearning process should never stop for an entrepreneur, and definitely have the patience because everybody wants success. All of us, in life want success, but it actually happens over a period of time. You may actually have a good day or a bad day, but that bad day doesn't mean that you get negative and you actually start seeing this as a failure. That mindset for an entrepreneur, is very, very critical. That will define your longevity, that will define your success, and that's the way you will be able to actually provide value to your clients, and that's the way you will be able to provide value to your human capital, which is your employees.
Thank you so much. And we come down to the end, to the last question of the very insightful discussion. It has been a tradition at Innovation Talks, Elets Innovation Talks, that we would want to request you to share exclusively with our Elets Innovation Talk audience one piece of information about the organization or upcoming project or something that you are able to reveal that hasn't been revealed on any other platform yet, exclusively for Elets audience.
Okay. I think the one thing actually which is actually more of a, in fact, again, that's thing actually works upon actually on the commercial lending side of the world. We're actually building a Gen AI solution, very aggressively. It has been in work for the last, 6 months, and this is the right platform to share, because that's the way it's our evolution, in fact, and it has come up after, 3 years of us into this journey. We were able to identify the correct problem statement in the credit portfolio management operations, of our commercial lending business, where how the AI or the Gen AI solution actually can eliminate, why not eliminate or make the business more efficient? And that's what actually you will see over the course of next 2 to 3 months that's being actually made public, uh, very quickly. And I think that's what actually has, and again, the reason I feel very, very passionate about it because we spent a lot of time to identify the right problem statement. And then once we were able to identify the right problem statement, we actually got that validation and vetting done, not only by our, group of clients, but also by some of the regulators, the C-level executives, the chief risk officers to make sure, am I looking at this, right problem statement that's actually a problem statement for the industry colleague, and then build a very niche solution. And that's what actually we are working very aggressively along, engaging our digital team and our clients. Over the course of next 2 to 3 months, you will see that going public.
That is great. Thank you so much for sharing, and we wish the organization and you best of luck. We will be keeping our eyes and ears out for when that gets out. So thank you so much once again for taking out time to impart wealth of knowledge and information with our audience today. Thank you so much, Mr. Anuj Khurana, co-founder and chief executive officer at Anaptyss.
Thank you. My pleasure talking to you as well. I really enjoyed the conversation. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And to our audience that is watching, we would like to thank you as well. If you have any questions for Mr. Anuj or Anaptyss, please feel free to leave those in the comments down below. We will get back to you with those responses from him. And also, if you have any suggestions for any brilliant leaders, entrepreneurs who are working in the space of BFSI, and you would want them to have conversations with us, leave those suggestions also down below. With that, we will sign off now. Stay informed with us on the latest BFSI updates. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Nice talking.
Thank you.